Do you believe that everything happening in your life right now has a purpose? Struggles, delays, challenges, none of it is by chance. What if I told you that you've been chosen for something far greater than you can imagine? Here's the truth. Only those who truly understand God's calling will be able to see what is about to be revealed in this video. Are you ready for this? Have you ever felt alone, as if you were fighting a battle that never ends? Or worse, as if your prayers were being ignored? I know how that feels. Doubt creeps in, hope weakens, and you start to wonder, why has God left me here? But here's something few people understand. The chosen ones always face greater challenges because God is shaping you for something greater. Every tear, every silence, every struggle, it all has a divine purpose. In this video we'll explore exactly why you're going through this. We'll talk about the desert that feels endless, the waiting period that makes you question the promise, and the small signs that show God is working even when you can't see it. This isn't just a message, it's a calling. A calling to understand that when God chooses someone, He also prepares them for something extraordinary. So, if you feel like you're in the middle of a storm right now, I invite you to stay with me until the end of this video. I'll not only show you the reason behind your struggles, but also how they are leading you toward the purpose God has already planned for you. And the best part? You'll understand that your victory is closer than ever. Are you ready to discover what God has prepared for you? Have you ever felt that you were called to something greater but don't quite understand what it is? Maybe you've noticed that your life is different from others, that your struggles feel heavier, as if something special is reserved for you. This isn't a coincidence, it's a divine revelation. God doesn't choose people by accident. He has specific plans for those He calls. Joseph, Moses, David, all faced immense challenges before realizing they had been chosen. And you? Are you ready to recognize your calling? Being chosen by God doesn't mean having an easy life. It means carrying the responsibility of something greater. Think of David, who was anointed as king while still a simple shepherd. He could have questioned, "Why me?" But God always has a clear purpose, even when we can't see it. You might feel small now, but know this: God sees the greatness He placed within you even if you can't see it yet. What should you do when you receive this revelation? First, you need to accept that being chosen is both a blessing and a responsibility. You'll need faith to move forward even when everything seems impossible. You might not understand what God is doing today, but remember, He is writing a story much bigger than you can imagine. A practical suggestion? Take a few minutes each day to reflect. What is God trying to show me right now? The most important thing to remember is that divine revelation is only the beginning. It's like a seed planted in the soil of your heart, waiting to grow. But this seed needs care, patience, and faith to flourish. So, what do you do after discovering you've been chosen? You persevere, knowing that the struggles that follow are part of the plan. Struggles and challenges. Two words no one wants to face, but they are inevitable for those who have been chosen. Have you ever wondered why the harder you try, the more difficult things seem to get? That's because God uses struggles as preparation. Think of Joseph. He was sold, wrongfully imprisoned, forgotten, and yet each of these steps was part of God's plan to bring him to the throne. Could your battles today be preparing you for something beyond what you can imagine? God is a master at turning difficulties into platforms for victory. But this requires persistence and trust in the process. Imagine your life as a piece of clay being shaped in the fire. The heat is necessary to strengthen the structure. It's painful, yes, but indispensable. Want a practical example? The next time something seems impossible, pause and say, "I don't know what's happening right now, but I know God is shaping me for something greater." This change in perspective can transform the way you face challenges. The truth is that the chosen face more struggles because they are being prepared for greater responsibilities. Just as a soldier can't go to battle without training, God can't take you to His promise without first preparing you. You might be facing something now that seems like a dead end, but remember, the greatest blessings come from the greatest battles. The question isn't, "Why is this happening to me?" but rather, "What does God want to teach me through this?" Every struggle is a step closer to God's promise. But you need to see it with eyes of faith. Joseph didn't see the palace while he was in prison, but he trusted. You can do that too. Start by listing the battles you've faced and see how God has sustained you so far. This is proof that He won't abandon you. And as you face these struggles, remember, waiting is also part of the process. Waiting is, without a doubt, one of the greatest tests of faith anyone can face. Have you ever felt stuck in a dead zone, where nothing seems to be happening? That's God's school. He uses waiting periods to teach us to trust in Him, not in our own abilities. Abraham waited years for God's promise, and in the end, discovered that the blessing wasn't just the promised son but the unshakable faith he developed in the process. What are you waiting for today? Waiting shapes us, strengthens us, and draws us closer to God's purpose. Think about this: the time you spend waiting isn't wasted time. It's like a seed planted in the ground. While it seems like nothing is happening, the roots are growing deeply. What can you do while you wait? Pray more frequently, seek wisdom in the Word, and ask God what He wants you to learn during this time. Sometimes, the greatest growth happens when everything seems still. But let's be honest, waiting isn't easy. It's painful, frustrating, and can even make you question if God is really listening. When Sarah tried to rush God's promise by offering Hagar to Abraham, it resulted in unnecessary complications. The lesson? Don't try to create shortcuts for divine promises. When you try to take control, you limit what God can do. So, trust His timing, because divine waiting always brings results that exceed our expectations. The most incredible thing about waiting is that it prepares us to receive something we're not ready to embrace yet. God doesn't delay, He works at the right time. Every second of waiting is a brick in the construction of the greater purpose He has for you. And do you know what makes the waiting more bearable? Understanding that even in the silence, God is working. As you reflect on this, let's dive into an even more challenging scenario: the desert, where God refines the faith and character of those He has chosen. The desert, a place of loneliness, uncertainties, and trials, but also a place where God speaks most clearly. Have you ever felt like you were in a desert, surrounded by difficulties and with no way out in sight? It's not easy, but the desert has a purpose. It's where God separates the essential from the superficial and shapes the character of those He has chosen. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before becoming the leader who would free Israel. And you? Are you ready to discover what the desert is trying to teach you? The desert is a school of spiritual growth. It's where God teaches you to depend on Him and not on your own strength. Think of the Israelites who received manna daily, just enough for that day. This complete dependence teaches us to trust, even when we don't understand. If you're in the desert right now, ask yourself, what does God want me to learn in this moment? Sometimes, what seems like punishment is actually preparation. What makes the desert so difficult is that it exposes our weaknesses. It's where we face our fears, doubts, and insecurities. But it's also where God transforms us. Imagine a soldier in training. They must go through challenging situations to become strong. The same is true for you in the desert. This might be the time to let go of old habits, negative thoughts, or even things that have been keeping you away from God. The desert is the place where you leave behind who you were and become who God has called you to be. But here's the good news: the desert doesn't last forever. It's a path, not a destination. God uses the desert to prepare you for the promise, but He never leaves you there. Every step you take in the desert is bringing you closer to the promised land. So, even though it seems hard right now, remember, you are being shaped for something much greater. And when you come out of the desert, you'll be stronger and more prepared for the challenges ahead. This is where persistence becomes one of the greatest virtues. Persistence is the invisible force that keeps us going, even when everything seems lost. Have you ever faced a moment when you wanted to give up, but something inside you said, "Hold on just a little longer"? That's the Spirit of God at work, strengthening your faith. The woman with the issue of blood persisted for 12 years, fighting against pain and rejection, until she touched Jesus. And do you know what happened? A miracle. Maybe today you need to hear this. Your miracle is in the next step. Don't stop now. Persistence doesn't mean ignoring the pain or pretending everything is fine. It means fighting despite the pain. Think of Joseph, who spent years in prison before becoming the governor of Egypt. Every day of waiting and suffering was part of God's plan. You might be experiencing something similar right now, but remember, God never forgets those He has chosen. A practical idea? Declare every day, "I trust that God is working even when I can't see it." This feeds your faith as you wait for the breakthrough. Persistence is also a test of obedience. It shows that you believe in God's promise, even when everything around you says otherwise. Sometimes things get worse before they get better, but that's part of the process. Just as a storm can intensify before the rainbow appears, your struggle now could be the final preparation for the miracle. Don't be deceived by appearances. God is working on something your eyes can't yet see. And here's the secret: the greatest miracle isn't just what God does for you, but what He does within you while you persist. Every battle won, every tear shed, is shaping you for what's to come. And remember, even the smallest signs can be the beginning of something great. Elijah saw a small cloud and knew the rain was coming. And you? Can you see the small signs God is sending? Let's talk about these signs of hope. Sometimes what God is doing in your life starts with a small sign. Something so subtle that if you're not paying attention you might miss it. Elijah saw a small cloud on the horizon after years of drought. To others it meant nothing, but to him, it was confirmation that the rain was coming. In your life there might be small signs of hope, a door starting to open, an encouraging word, or even an inexplicable peace in the midst of chaos. Are you paying attention to these signs? The problem is that we're often so focused on the difficulties that we fail to see God's signs. It's like waiting for a storm but ignoring the first drop of rain. If you feel like God is taking too long, ask yourself, could he have already started working and I haven't noticed? A practical example? Try writing down something positive that happens every day, no matter how small. These small moments are like Elijah's little cloud, signaling that the promise is closer than you think. Signs of hope not only encourage us but also prepare us for what's to come. They are reminders that God is faithful and never breaks his promises. Think about this. Every small step forward, every moment when something seems to go right, is a divine gift to renew your faith. Imagine if Elijah had stopped praying before seeing the cloud. He would have missed the miracle God was about to deliver. The lesson here is clear. Never underestimate small beginnings. These signs are like sparks that ignite the flame of your faith but require you to keep moving forward. The hope God gives isn't meant to make you stand still but to help you move forward with confidence. So, if today you've noticed a sign, no matter how small, celebrate it. Share it with someone, declare your gratitude in prayer. And remember, the sign is just the beginning. It's an invitation to act. Now we've reached the crucial moment. What will you do with everything you've heard and felt so far? God has chosen you, prepared you, and given you clear signs that he is with you. But faith without action is like a seed that is never planted. It cannot grow. Just as Peter had to step out of the boat to walk on water, you too need to take a step of faith. And maybe today is the day to do that. What will your first move be? Acting in faith doesn't mean doing something grand or impossible. It can be as simple as kneeling in prayer or encouraging someone who is struggling. Think about this. Every small action you take in obedience is a brick in the construction of God's plan for your life. A practical suggestion? Make a list of 3 things you can do today to strengthen your faith or help someone. Small actions have a massive impact when done with purpose. Moreover, you have been called to share this message. When you share hope, you not only bless others but also strengthen your own faith. Jesus sent his disciples to spread the good news, and the same calling is upon you. Who in your life needs to hear that God is present and that struggles have a purpose? Send a message, make a call, or even share this video. You could be the answer to someone's prayer today. God didn't choose you to remain still. He called you to be light, to act, to move toward the purpose he designed for you. What's coming is big, but it requires you to take action now. And remember, every journey begins with a single step. Are you ready to take yours? As you reflect on this, let me take you to the most powerful point of this message, where everything will make even more sense. Have you realized how God is calling you? Every struggle, every tear, every prayer that seemed unanswered, all of it is part of a greater plan. The desert is not where your story ends, it's just the path to the promise. God never loses control and he never chooses anyone by mistake. If you're seeing this video, it's because he wants you to know, your preparation is coming to an end, and something incredible is about to happen. But here's the most important point. God's greatest miracle isn't what he does for you, but what he does within you. Every battle you've won, every moment of persistence, is shaping you to become someone capable of carrying his divine promise. Just as Joseph went from the prison to the palace, the next step in your life could be what takes you to the purpose you've always sought. And maybe you're asking, why is it taking so long? Because God's timing is perfect. He's never late and he hasn't forgotten you. That small sign of hope you saw, a prayer answered, a feeling of peace, is the beginning of something much bigger. The rain Elijah waited for began with a small cloud. And in your life, what seems small today could turn into a downpour of blessings. Now is the time to make a decision. Will you trust God and move forward even without seeing everything clearly? Will you act in faith and embrace what he has prepared for you? God is calling you to step out of the boat, to walk on water, to live the purpose he planned for you. This is the moment to stand as someone who has been chosen. Because you have been, and your story is just beginning. Now that you've heard all of this, it's time to make a decision. The message was clear. God has chosen you and he has a greater purpose for your life. But remember, divine promises don't come to those who wait passively. They are fulfilled in those who act in faith, trust the process, and persevere even when things seem difficult. So, the question is, what will you do with what you've learned today? Maybe the first step is simple. Pray right now, asking God for clarity about what He is preparing for you. Or maybe it's time to act, to step out of the boat like Peter and walk on water, even if everything inside you says it's impossible. Think also about how you can be an instrument of God in someone else's life. Who can you help today? Who needs to hear this message? I challenge you to apply all of this to your life. Make a list of actions you can start today to align with God's plan. It could be dedicating more time to prayer, reconnecting with someone you've drifted away from, or simply declaring every day, I trust in God's timing. And above all, don't give up. Your victory is closer than you think. Finally, I want to invite you to be part of this journey of faith and growth. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this. Remember, what God is doing in your life isn't just for you but to impact everyone around you. So, shall we go together? The best is yet to come.